Welcome back to Newsfeed PM on Newzroom Afrika, channel 405. I'm Masachaba Kumalo. Thank you for staying with us. Now, the UN Human Rights Council has adopted a resolution calling for Israel to be held accountable for possible war crimes in Gaza. This week, 7 aid workers were killed, triggering condemnation from the UK, the United States and Australia. And it's been close to 6 months since conflict broke out in Gaza. Joining us is Zeenat Adam, Deputy Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Center. Zeenat, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Newzroom.
Thank you so much for having me on air.
Now, first and foremost, let's just get straight into it. The fact that the aid workers shared their GPS coordinates, they were driving in a clearly marked vehicle, and they were in a non-conflict zone, but still got hit is a travesty. What do you make of this tragedy?
This has certainly drawn much of the world's attention to what has been happening in Gaza, but it is not the first incident against aid workers. In fact, from the beginning, from the 7th of October and the Israeli incursions into Gaza, there have been several attacks, including on Médecins Sans Frontières, including on United Nations convoys, where they have shared their coordinates and then they've been attacked with clearly marked vehicles. This has been one of the most horrific on the world's central kitchen, and what it has shown, and the reaction to that coming from the United States, from the UK, and now from the Human Rights Council, is that unfortunately the lives of foreign aid workers is elevated above that of 33,000 to 40,000 Palestinians who have been ethnically cleansed in the last 6 months.
Yeah, we've seen how Israel has gone against nations considered to be allies. Do you believe that this resolution will have any impact at all?
I think that what has come out on the World Central Kitchen, to just go back to that question before I answer the one on the Human Rights Council, is that Israel today issued a report that they have had an investigation. They have suspended 2 of their generals or commanders who were in the field, and saying that they have acted outside of what their mandate has been. Now, we've heard this kind of a story before in a similar investigation when the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh was killed. But because there has been so much of visibility on this issue, Israel has come out and now had the fall guys. On the Human Rights Council, there were several resolutions that were tabled today related to the Palestinian and Israeli issues. This particular one calls for an end to arms sales, and it comes at a time saying that there is a warning of a possible genocide. It was passed 28-6, and notoriously the United States and Germany have voted against this resolution. They're still feeding Israel with arms consistently, even after the United Nations Security Council resolution that called for a ceasefire 2 weeks ago.
And given this week's unprovoked attack on aid workers, it's clear that Israel is on its own campaign to retaliate for the October 7th attack. What do you make of the Israeli Prime Minister's apology to the families of the slain and the workers?
Well, we've heard from the World Central Kitchen that they don't accept this apology. They do feel that this was a deliberate, targeted attack, and the methodology of that attack was that the aid workers were in one car, moved on to a different car when that one was attacked, and to a third one, and all of them were killed in those targeted assassinations. Israel cannot have the excuse that they don't have the ability of discerning whether this was a Hamas operative or whether this was a civilian or foreign aid workers, because they clearly had marked vehicles. And it has come out recently that Israel has the AI capability of being able to identify individuals in this war by facial recognition and other means. So it's impossible for them to have made a mistake in this. What has transpired as a result is that there's pressure on the United States, and from that, Biden has had a conversation with Netanyahu to say things need to change on the ground, and if that doesn't happen, it's going to have further repercussions because they're losing the PR war, as Trump had said yesterday. As a result of that, Israel today has announced that they will, for the first time in the 6 months, be opening 2 of the crossings on their side of the border of Gaza, and that perhaps some of the aid would be able to enter through there instead of through the southern border with Egypt.
And Zeenat, does a visible inaction from Western nations toward the behavior of Israel reveal bias in the way some nations are treated?
Absolutely. We had a Security Council resolution that was passed calling for a ceasefire. And the day after that, we had John Kirby from the United States say it was a non-binding resolution. This is the first time in history that a United Nations Security Council resolution could be considered non-binding. What it was, it is in fact binding, but what was lacking in that it was not founded under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter, and that meant that there is no enforcement of the resolution, which means that there would be no intervention should Israel violate the resolution, and they violated it. And they violated more than 62 resolutions throughout the 75 years. Of their occupation, of their illegal occupation of Palestinian land. So they have a complete disregard for the global governance structures and the infrastructure that we have. They have a complete disregard for the ruling of the International Court of Justice on the provisional measures to prevent a genocide. And they've been totally defiant in the face of any of these resolutions and court orders.
And what actions would you like to see Western nations taking, especially in light of these recent developments?
The most important would be a comprehensive ceasefire, and that has been very difficult to achieve because Israel has dug its heels in terms of the ceasefire negotiations, refusing to allow people who have been displaced into Rafah to return to their homes in the north of Gaza. They have refused the idea of withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. And they have refused the idea of an exchange of hostages because they are holding thousands of Palestinians as prisoners of war. And Hamas has asked for that to have been an exchange so that the Israeli hostages held in Gaza can be returned. Israel has been completely defiant in terms of those negotiations as well. What has been required, and even the UN Special Rapporteur on the Palestinian issue, Francesca Albanese, has called for, is enforcement and sanctions against Israel, is an arms embargo against Israel, and that's what this Human Rights Council resolution also calls for.
All right, that was Zeenat Adam, Deputy Executive Director of the Afro-Middle East Center. Thank you very much, Zeenat.